All right, everyone. Welcome back to another live edition of the AIM Sports with Alex and Martin. I'm excited about this episode, as I am with each and every episode, because in this one we're going to talk some NBA, some basketball, some playoffs with our good friend Tom Pestak. But before we do that, Alex, how's it going, man?
Doing very well, and enjoying my 1 week off in between semesters. So hopefully we'll be able to catch up on a couple episodes now that I have a little bit more availability. But doing well, enjoying Florida. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing awesome because, first of all, Tom's on the show, and we're in the midst of NBA playoffs right now, and I've wanted to have him on the video show for quite a while now. Yeah, welcome back to the show. So, and Tom's a big deal. But real quick, Alex, before we move on to Tom, I want to ask you one question about Captain America 3. To surmise it in one word, how would you describe it? In one word. No? Or you can use 2 words. Was it awesome or good or bad?
Amazing. Yeah. It was amazing. A little overwhelming. There's a lot to take in. There's definitely a lot to take in. So
I'm excited. I'm going to go check it out this week sometime.
Definitely worth it. It is a long movie. I think it was about 2.5 hours. But
you and these long movies, man. Every time I talk to you, you're like, between Batman.
Last time I saw Batman versus Superman, that was 240, but that was also an abysmal movie to watch. So it was really, really tough to sit there for that long. With Captain America Civil War, you sit there for a long time, but there's so much going on that it keeps on bringing you back in. And multiple times I was actually sitting on the edge of my seat. So, and this is coming from a guy who isn't necessarily the biggest into the comic book world. In that pretty much all of my knowledge is coming from the movies, so I don't have a lot of the backstories that go along. But certainly a really, really good movie to watch, even if you're not up to date on all of the happenings of the Marvel Universe.
All right, good deal, man. All right, without further ado, joining the AM Sports Show today is our good friend of ours, good friend of the show, from owner of Cavs Blog, Mr. Tom Pestak. Tom, what's going on, man?
I'm doing great in cloudy Dayton, Ohio.
I'm wearing this shirt because of you.
I love it, man. So, I love it. It's I got my Mark Price up here.
Nice. That? Yeah.
Represent.
Yeah. Did I ever show you this that we did? Right here. Cavs rank.
No, that's cool.
Yeah, so 2 years ago, this was before LeBron came back, mind you. Cavs the blog, Fear the Sword, Waiting for Next Year, Real Cavs fans, some other blogs got together. There was probably about 20 of us, and we all voted on our all-time, this is not going to stand up now, our all-time Cavaliers. And then after we compiled the votes, everyone got to pick which players they wanted to write about. So, number one, obviously, if we did this today, LeBron would be number one, but there were still some sour feelings at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. But
it's Lebron. Alex, his name is Lebron James.
While this list, I would say, is a little bit biased by people my age and younger. You know, a lot of the old-time Miracle Richfield Cavaliers are probably either not on here or lower on here than they should be. But it's a pretty good who's who of Cavalier franchise history. And the Cavs Rank series, if you search for it, if you're ever interested, there was some really good work done by all these different blogs on who all these different Cavaliers were, what they meant to the franchise, what they meant personally. It was a cool series. So, but I wanted to show it to you because I had my sister-in-law make that logo in the style of the Cavs 80s, early 90s. Like
I love this logo. I love.
I know,
isn't
that so classic?
Yeah, it's just. And I like it when they wear the blue jerseys. With the orange and stuff.
Me too.
Before I ask you the first question, I want to ask you: is Ricky Davis on that Cavs all-time great?
No. Boy, Ricky Davis. I just thought LeBron was here to help me get shots. You know what? Ricky, I'm glad that Ricky Davis happened, right? It's something funny now to talk about. And he wasn't that bad of a player. He just
Alex, just go to YouTube and just search for Ricky Davis triple-double.
Triple-double, yeah. And just the best is Jerry Sloan's face.
Like, Ricky Davis is the epitome of selfish.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just Google or search for on YouTube. It's a funny video.
Yeah, just search for Ricky Davis triple-double sometime and enjoy Jerry Sloan's exasperated face. It's pretty good. It's worthwhile.
Hey, Tom, sticking with the all-time, because I really like that list. That's pretty cool that you guys did that with the all-time great Cavs. Let's talk about Kevin Love, because it's just let's just talk about how well he's playing. So just give us your take on it. And is this what Cavs fans were hoping and expecting this whole time?
Absolutely. I think the big thing I've noticed about Kevin Love is throughout the last 2 years, he's always been a good first quarter player. And anytime he gets extended rest, he usually puts up a good game.
Right.
But, last year, I think it was back spasms. This year, maybe it's just the fact that he's lost so much weight. He doesn't have the physique to bang down in the post anymore. But he has been the kind of guy this year that fades, especially in fourth quarters. And so you'd be watching a game, maybe the fourth quarter, Kevin Love's, getting all these dagger three-point attempts. He's missing a lot of them. But then what you really notice is, wow, he's having trouble collecting rebounds. The ball's rolling away, and his guys running around him to get to it. And what I've noticed about these playoffs, starting with the Detroit series, is that even when his shot isn't falling, he's affecting the game. And, the Cavs coach, Tyronn Lue, decided not long before the playoffs started that Timofey Mozgov was essentially out of the rotation.
Yeah.
And when that happened, my first thought was, well, I don't know why you would necessarily just broadcast that to everyone. I mean, maybe it doesn't matter. But I thought, there are a handful of teams that you want Mozgov. And the first team that came to mind was the Detroit Pistons because of Andre Drummond. I mean, the guy is a load. And Mozgov hardly played at all in that series. And what I noticed about Kevin Love was very often in fourth quarters, the Cavs were going small with Kevin Love at the 5, and Drummond was not able to do anything on the offensive glass. So Kevin Love's defensive rebounding fundamentals, I think, are the best in the league. He's really like the next. He's kind of like old Tim Duncan in his fundamentals. Just an outstanding rebounder. Doesn't really use athleticism at all to grab defensive rebounds. And the Pistons were one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the regular season. And when the Cavs would go small, Drummond could be in the game, and they never got any second chance opportunities. So that's what I noticed in the first round was, okay. Oh, and then there was that play, I don't know if you remember, it was a highlight play against the Pistons where Kevin Love put the ball on the deck. He went to the hole. He kind of lost the ball. It started rolling away. And until you saw the baseline camera angle, you didn't realize how fantastic this was. But he got down on the ground and in one motion scooped the ball and kind of scooped a missile right before it rolled out of bounds to LeBron. And then Love had the wherewithal to then pop back to the other corner. And he received the pass from LeBron and hit a dagger 3. And he's been doing stuff like that all series, taking charges at the right time, hitting dagger 3s. He had that play in the Hawks in Game 3, the first game in Atlanta, where he blocked, I think it was Jeff Teague, at the end of the game, and then he saved the ball as well. And then he came down and that might have been immediately after he had hit a 3. So he's coming up big, especially in the fourth quarter. And like I said, my key takeaway is even when his shooting percentages aren't great, he is affecting the game in positive ways, that's kind of, we didn't see that so much over the last 2 years. It was kind of like if he wasn't shooting the lights out, he was a net negative. And that hasn't been the case so far in the playoffs.
So another player that kind of emerged, at least in the recent series, is Channing Frye.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, what is this? Because to me, the Cavs are already a pretty deep team to begin with. And when someone like him, what do you have, 27 points or whatever he had in that, I mean, he really just
27 points in 28 minutes.
Yeah, he further bolstered that bench. what does that do for the Cavs moving forward? If they continue to play like this, yeah.
I mean, they're just offensively, they're just clicking on all cylinders. I mean, I was thinking about this after yesterday's game. They're trotting out lineups with two guys that are prolific, like 7 foot tall 3-point shooters. Like Kevin Love's 6'11", Channing Frye 7 foot. They're not just guys that can step outside and hit threes. I mean, that's what they do. So they've got lineups with two guys that can shoot over pretty much anyone and are excellent 3-point shooters. Then they put J.R. Smith and Kyrie Irving out there, who, outside of Steph Curry, have to be two of maybe the top 5 guys in the league at hitting contested 3-point shots. And then, you may have LeBron in there, who LeBron's a terrible outside shooter right now. But that's 4 guys that, along with LeBron, they're just devastating at hitting 3-pointers, right? And if all 4 of them were more of the spot 3-point shooting variety, it might be a little bit easier to defend that.
Yeah.
But gosh, Kyrie Irving can hit him off the dribble. J.R. Smith can hit him off the curl. And LeBron starts to drive. And if you saw the Hawks' defensive game plan, it was just collapse, collapse, collapse. Don't let LeBron get to the rack. Well, they never changed their stripes. And the Cavs just kept piling up the 3-pointers. And you can look at a guy like J.R. Smith and say, well, it was just hot shooting. You look at a guy like Channing Frye. Okay, he made 7 of 9. But he was going to make at least like 4 or 5 of 9. Those were all wide open shots.
Yeah.
Right? He's not forcing shots. He's popping to the open spot, and there's no one there. And he's 7 feet tall, so closeouts don't really affect him. I just can't believe what's happened with Channing Frye. The guy could barely get off the pine in Orlando. And when the Cavs made that move, I followed Channing Frye. I know what he's capable of doing. I liked the move from a fit perspective, but I never thought in my wildest dreams he would be this valuable. And it's not just the 3-point shooting. He's been okay defensively. And when they close out too hard, he even has the ability to put the ball on the deck a little bit. He had a ferocious dunk in the Pistons series. In that game where he had the 27 points, there was a hard closeout. He put the ball on the deck and he kissed it off the glass. He can roll in the pick and roll. He had a play with Delly where he threw down a dunk. So he's not a one-trick pony. And it's just, I don't think you say you thought they were already a deep team. I don't think Tyronn Lue realized how deep his team is because I don't think he knew. I know he didn't think Channing Frye was going to do this, and I don't think he trusted Richard Jefferson as much as now he can. Richard Jefferson has been just phenomenal in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. He's sticking threes. He's arguably been one of the Cavs' best defensive players, which I don't know. I don't think anyone would have ever guessed that. He's been a good veteran, calming presence. In Game 3, Kevin Love started off really hot, and then in the second quarter, he missed a bunch of shots in a row, got called for a couple questionable fouls, and he got real hot with the referees. And Kevin Love very rarely seems to get emotional in the game, and he was extremely emotional. And over on the sidelines, Richard Jefferson got right in his face and, had some very strong words to say to him. And Kevin Love came up huge at the end of that game. And it just, you look at the Cavs veteran pickups last year. Yeah. Sean Marion. Mike Miller.
Yeah.
James Jones actually was pretty good last year. He hasn't given him much this year. But those first 2 guys, they really gave him nothing. This year, Richard Jefferson and now Channing Frye being the veteran leaders. Now, I know Mo Williams hasn't really done much, but 2 out of the 3 are in the playoff rotation, and their plus-minus is off the charts. So if you're the Cavs, you could look at that this playoff series go, we're 8-0, and LeBron isn't even playing nearly his best ball. And Dellavedova's in a massive shooting slump, And Tristan Thompson is hardly getting any shot attempts, and his free throw percentage has been putrid. So three of the guys that were huge, arguably top 5 guys from a plus-minus standpoint in the regular season, have been a little bit underwhelming, and the Cavs are 8-0. So, their depth is phenomenal right now.
Now, Tom, you said earlier that they were hitting on all cylinders. They're 8-0, so they swept Atlanta in 4 games, but you look at the other series in the East, you have Toronto, Miami. Toronto's leading that series 2-1. They're leading this game right now with under 4 minutes left by only 5. So Miami's still within striking distance. Let's say this goes to a game 6, maybe even a 7. How does the time off? Do you think the time off in between the end of the Cavs series and the end of this other series, will that affect them and affect their momentum going into the next round of the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where generally you make your analysis of that based on the result. It's hard to predict ahead of time. I guess I've seen it where if I had to say what I generally think happens, I generally think it does affect your momentum. I'm basing this on, a handful of samples off different sports, but if you looked at game 1 of the Atlanta series, the Cavs came out kind of flat. Yeah. And it wasn't really until late in the game in the fourth quarter when they kind of took over. And that was a home game. And, Atlanta played a grueling series with the Celtics. So from a rust perspective, you would think, given how much better the Cavs proved to be, that game 1 should have been like the blowout game. Like you're catching a team that's kind of weary and they're on the road and you've had all this rest, and they weren't able to impose their will until very late in that game. And then, of course, in game 2, they just completely blew the doors off them. In the first half, the game was over, 3 minutes into the second quarter. So I could see the same thing happening again. I can look back to 2009. It's actually kind of funny. The exact same thing happened in 2009. The Cavs opened against Detroit and then against Atlanta, and they swept both teams. They started off 8-0, and they had a week to wait, or the Orlando Magic ended up being their opponent. And in game 1, it was maybe a little different because the Cavs actually came out pretty hot in game 1, but defensively they just were not crisp. They could never really slow down the Magic, and the Magic ended up taking that game. They stole game 1. And, of course, they eventually won that series in 6 games. So, I mean, the potential for something like that is there. A team that is in a grueling series is used to the physicality, maybe is the speed of the game is more recent to them. But I think over the long haul, there doesn't seem to be any injuries right now on the Cavs. No one seems to have any nagging injuries. But I'm sure someone has a sore leg or a sore shoulder or something like that. It's just all that extra time allows you to kind of rehab that so that you're really kind of starting from a health perspective very fresh going into the next round. So much like they did against the Hawks, what they need to do is just, find a way to, at some point in that game, get to the point where they're clicking and not get kind of upset in game 1, because I just, whether it's Toronto or Miami, I just don't see how either of those teams can beat the Cavs in the 7-game series.
Yeah, you don't really see them stacking up. That said, it's now under 3 minutes. Toronto's up 81-77. Who do you see winning that series? Again, Toronto is up 2-1 at the moment for the series itself. Who do you feel the Cavs will be playing in the next round?
I think, Toronto was the better team throughout the regular season. The Heat did add Joe Johnson in the second half, but the Raptors got DeMar Carroll back. And so both teams have had a lot of injuries. They've had some roster changes. I think, it's Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan have been playing so poorly. Yeah. And I think with Lowry, a lot of it is physical. It's just hard for me to envision they'll continue to play that poorly forever. I mean, they're good players. They were all-stars for a reason. Kyle Lowry, you could argue, was the best point guard in the East this year. Now, is he the best point guard, period? No, I think Kyrie Irving and John Wall are better point guards. But this season, Lowry was a better player. So, if you look at like a team's ceiling, I think Toronto has the higher ceiling. And then now that Whiteside's out, I think that really affects Miami defensively because they like to overplay and be aggressive in the passing lanes, and they have the length to do that. But it's a lot easier to do that when you have a rim protector. So I think Toronto will win the series. But you never know. I mean, Miami does have, I think, a better coach. They have more playoff experience, more star power. And if it comes down to, if it's a tight game, I trust, Dwayne Wade more than I trust Kyle Lowry. But, I've seen – see, the thing is, neither of these teams are good enough offensively, in my opinion. I mean, the Heat, none of them can shoot threes, which in the playoffs, if your team can't shoot threes, it's just too easy to scheme against that defensively. Like a team like the Cavs, if they played the Heat in a series, I bet you any money there would be a couple quarters where the Heat would have like 13 points or something, just silly low.
Yeah,
because they just can't. They can't spread you out. You can collapse. You can switch on the pick and roll. You can. It was the defense that everyone used on LeBron for all those years. You just shrink and then try to recover on the shooters. Yeah. You can do that against the Heat. The Raptors are a more athletic team, in my opinion. They have a higher ceiling, and I think they'll get it done against the Heat. And I think they could steal a game or two from the Cavs, but they're just not good enough in the end, I think, to knock off Cleveland.
Do you think that Toronto, because they're younger in the sense of they just haven't been in the playoffs, and they don't have that experience, do you think that they're at an advantage because they don't have the pressure of expectation?
Well, I think they do have. Well, maybe some of the pressure of expectation has been
or at least
reduced.
Not as much as Miami. Because
Toronto had a monkey on their back that they finally got off by getting out of the first round. So in that sense, yeah, I mean, Toronto against Cleveland would be a massive underdog. They could play with house money, and no one, I mean, really, at this point, if they won a game, that would be like, golf clap. And if they won 2 games, people would be talking about the future rivalry between the Raptors and the Cavs, where, yeah, they would be massive unders. And I think the Heat, enough people would talk themselves into this idea that the Heat could hang with the Cavs. I already see that everywhere. Like, LeBron's going to get into this like mental funk going against his old team and his old buddy and his old coach. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, even if he does, the Cavs will still win. I mean, LeBron could go into any kind of funk you want, and the Cavs are going to beat the Heat. I think the Cavs would rather play the Heat because, like I said, I think the Heat have a lower ceiling. I think just the fact that they can't really shoot threes makes defending them a lot easier. And I think the Cavs' Achilles heel this year has been speedy point guards. And I think Kyle Lowry will cause a lot more problems to the Cavs than Goran Dragic. So I think that matchup, might favor the opposing team. I shouldn't say. I mean, Kyrie Irving's better than either of those point guards, but that would be a weak spot to exploit for either team. And you could see with the Hawks. I mean, Dennis Schroeder had 2 games where he kind of went off, and it's because the Cavs have trouble staying in front of speedy point guards.
With him, yeah.
So Tom, let's talk. I want to talk about LeBron James for a second. Mm-hmm. We've seen, like with Kevin Love, his improved play. Channing Frye basically stepping up big time in the playoffs. To me, I've been watching a lot of Cavs playoff games, and Kyrie's game is. It seems like the game is slowing down for him, which is allowing him to be more of a playmaker. How has LeBron's role changed this playoffs versus last year in the playoffs?
No, that's a great observation too about Kyrie. I completely agree. That was my biggest concern, was him, really. And you're right. The game does seem to be slowing down for him. He's making better decisions. He's becoming more of a playmaker. He's developing some chemistry with Kevin Love and Channing Frye.
Yeah.
So yeah, his game has definitely undergone a positive transition. With LeBron, I've noticed some positives and some negatives. The positives are, I think, because he handles less of a load offensively on this team, he has more energy, especially in second halves, to kind of become a free safety on defense and try to play a lot of passing lanes, recover. He seems to have more energy defensively to kind of crank it up when he feels like he needs to. He doesn't seem worn out, in those third and fourth quarters. We still get a little bit of chill mode LeBron defensively sometimes in first halves. And I think that's just because mentally he's just not that anxious, at least not against the Pistons and the Hawks. And he won't be, I don't think, against the Raptors or the Heat. That might change going up against a team like the Warriors or even the Spurs or the Thunder. But right now, you can see LeBron play a little bit of a lazy game from time to time. And I think he's empowered to really crank it up in second halves because he's facing up less. I think that's the biggest energy drain for him is when he decides, all right, I got to calm things down. I got to get us a bucket, give me the rock. Everyone's spread out. And, LeBron's not quick enough anymore to blow by ISO defenders.
Right.
And so when he tries to do stuff like that, he takes a lot of contact. I've noticed this year more than ever, he, whether it's him personally or it's just the way they're officiating these playoffs, you're just not getting whistles when you drive to the rack and there's contact. I mean, it has to be like blatant, you got to be like raked across the face or something. They're not calling the body blows or the kind of reach-ins that happen on the way there. And so LeBron is shooting a career low. He has a career low free throw rate right now, like way low. I think his career playoff free throw rate is like 9.5 attempts per game. And you have to check this, but I think right now he's like 3 or below. Like it's absurd how little he's getting to the free throw line. Some of that is, I think he's had a reluctance to drive in based on he'll go there a couple times, doesn't get any whistles. And he's like, well, this is for the birds, especially when I got all these big guys splashing threes. Why do I got to try to finish? Some of it's his reduced athleticism. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you see LeBron finishing more below the rim than ever. He's getting blocked at the rim more than we've ever seen before. So his role on this team right now has definitely switched more to try off ball, trying to get him in space with the ball to utilize his passing. And like I said, again, just when he has to, like, if you think back to last year's playoffs and finals, when he has to shoulder such a heavy offensive burden, it's much harder. You almost have to let him rest a little bit on the defensive end. You got to put him on a guy that's a limited offensive player and hope that he doesn't have to get, moved around too much. And sometimes he wouldn't even fight through screens. He'd recognize, okay, Andre Iguodala is going to run up around this screen, and he would just call out, hey, pick up Iggy, and he would stay back with the big man because it's like, I'm not going to chase this guy over the court. Whereas now I notice a lot more. He looks like more like Troy Polamalu, like his eyes are wide and he's ready to pounce at any moment. So I think that's kind of what I've seen lately. I think what we saw at the end of the regular season that was awesome was with Dellavedova, they developed a nice pick and roll game where LeBron would be the roller, which honestly that's almost never happened in his career, where he was the one setting the pick and rolling. LeBron's almost always been the ball handler, getting a pick from whoever, whether it was a guard or Big Z or whoever it was.
Yeah.
So as the roller, a guy like LeBron catching the ball in space is just devastating, right? He can finish with either hand. He has the court vision. He can pass over taller players, whatever. And he's just such a good finisher when you don't have all this time to load up on him in the face-up game. And that was just working to perfection. And partly LeBron and Dellavedova haven't played as many minutes together in the playoffs, and partly teams, I think, have recognized how devastating that is, and they're kind of staying home on LeBron and letting Delly try to create mid-range, which is not his strong suit. And also LeBron, I've seen at times, has a reluctance to roll into the teeth. Again, I think he's getting beat up, and I don't think, if he doesn't need to, which he obviously hasn't needed to, get way down in the post in these first 2 rounds, he's going to avoid it. But it'll be interesting to watch if he gets in a series where it's tightly contested, if they go back to that a little more and you see more LeBron pick and rolls where he's the roller, or you see more LeBron in the post.
I'm looking in the chat section. I see that Kelly joined the show. So, Kelly, thank you for joining AM Sports. This is AM Sports with Alex and Martin. The guest on this show is Tom Pestak from Cavs to Blog, and we were talking NBA playoffs, NBA general, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Hey, Tom, what's this? Does it seem like the Cavaliers have an extra sense of urgency in putting forth that extra effort this year compared to last year? I know we talked about the previous question was about LeBron's different role this year versus last year, but just as a team, does it seem like it's a different type of urgency?
I wouldn't say I notice a sense of urgency. I almost see more a sense of calm, if that makes any sense. I see a calm with Tyronn Lue. I've had a sense of urgency. So, game 1 of series 1 against Detroit, and I'm sitting on my couch wigging out about the rotations, and Tyronn Lue just doesn't at all seem fazed by anything. And I'm sitting here, pounding away on Twitter. What the heck is he doing? Like, what's with this new bench rotation that we've never seen play together? And what's with no Mozgov? And what's with no Channing Frye? And what's with so little Delly? And there ain't no, it's kind of like maybe I need to take a step back.
It's working.
It's working.
Working.
But I think they're not overreacting to things. When I notice a team has a sense of urgency, usually you see that in first halves. They play really hard in first quarters and first halves. They try to step on the gas from the beginning and then step on the throat of the opponent. The Cavs are more like a cat right now, just kind of playing with their prey. And when when the game's over and it's time for dinner, there ain't no, right? So
yeah.
But I wrote in my in one of my pieces that maybe the Cavs are having a sense of destiny. I don't think any of them, coach included, realized how devastatingly effective they could be for 3. I mean, I think it caught everyone off guard because you're listening to these guys in the post game and they're kind of like, we were opened. J.R. Smith's like, I'm going to shoot it. I don't know what you want me to say.
Yeah, he's going to shoot it. He's not going to pass the ball. So he's
right. But Channing Frye's making jokes. These guys aren't all just like, that's our game plan. Even LeBron was playing down the fact he's like, well, we're not a 3-point shooting team. It's just sort of like, I don't know what you want us to say there. We're running our sets. It's the floor, the courts, we're spacing it out. It's open. And our guys are knocking down 46 or 50% of our threes. And a lot of that's good shot making from some guys like JR and Kyrie. Some of it's just, guys are very comfortable. They're in rhythm. Richard Jefferson, Channing Frye, these guys are they're confident. They're in rhythm. They feel like they're going to knock it down. And that's where I kind of see almost a sense of destiny. Like, they don't seem afraid. They don't seem afraid to miss. They don't seem afraid of the moment. I haven't seen necessarily a defensive sense of urgency yet, and that might be something to worry about. But at the same time, why do they have to go balls to the wall for 48 minutes defensively if they're going to be 8-0? And it was kind of funny after the game. I think it was Lisa Salters was asking LeBron, what are you going to say about the Hawks? It was a close game kind of thing. And he said, yeah, you got to give it up to the Hawks. They really gave us a tight game. This could have gone either way. They had a sense of urgency. We tried to have a sense of urgency is what he said. Like, we tried to match that. And then he just very plainly said, but, we're not down. We weren't down 3-0. So, it's kind of hard sometimes to do it because you have to manufacture it, right? Your backs aren't against the wall. You could have a gentleman's sweep. You could lose this game. You're going to go home and you're probably going to win by 30, and if somehow that loses, you're not going to lose 4 straight when you're the superior team and you're healthy. It's never happened in NBA history for a reason. So, I think that was a great point. So all the hand wringing, that I can do over, they're letting Schroeder get what he wants and, they're having trouble with this and that. It's kind of like, I'm not sure we've really even seen what the Cavs can do defensively as a peak.
Yeah.
And like I said, you can always look at a team that's shooting the ball well and say, well, it's a little bit random. Like J.R. Smith every now and then does go 8 of 12 from 3. He also has nights where he goes 1 of 9 from 3. He's he's strung together a couple of good games. And I completely buy that for J.R. Smith, right? Because all he takes are contested, fadeaway, stanky leg threes, with a guy in his face. But you look at what Richard Jefferson's getting, what Channing Frye's getting, and it's like, no, those guys are going to knock down 40% of those shots that they get in that situation. They're set. They're in rhythm. The pass is coming to them right in the pocket. They're going to make most or a good portion of those. So I don't see, unless there's some kind of, unless the Cavs run into a really good defensive foe like San Antonio or Golden State, I don't see why that would change, why those shots would suddenly stop being there, given the personnel. Yeah, Oklahoma City's defense. We got to talk about that. Oklahoma City's defense it's blown me away, to be honest.
I mean, I'd like to say that I'm surprised, but I'm not. So,
you're surprised by Dion Waiters. You are surprised by how well he's playing. Don't even lie. You are surprised by how well Dion Waiters is playing. He's playing off the charts.
Yeah, and he, Durant has confidence in him, and that's been a.
Wow. That's what everyone says.
What they said, but he's. I would say that Waiters is getting shots, but he's going to take shots regardless too. It's he kind of, but yeah, I mean he's playing well, he's shooting well, and he hit some big shots yesterday, and he had some big shots in Game 3, even though they didn't win that game. But it's exciting. So.
Well, I mean, defensively in Game 3, and in Game 2, I didn't notice him defensively as much in Game 4 because that game just kind of got out of hand at the end.
Yeah,
he's checking Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, 0 point. At one point, he and Aldridge only had 0 points in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, the Thunder as a team were – I don't remember if Kawhi Leonard scoring in the fourth quarter at all. But, the Thunder doing their part. So,
yeah, I was – and good for Dion. I mean, I liked Dion when he was in Cleveland. I liked following him. He's a character, but I think he's a good-natured guy. And, I'd love to see him have a nice career because, boy – I just thought that guy could be like, D-League. He just looked so bad at times, so inefficient, just no awareness of like what he was good at and what he wasn't good at. But he's got an NBA body. He's knocking down shots. And, maybe this is the series where he learns what his role needs to be. It needs to be the guy that can check the other team's shooting guard or small forward because he's strong, he's got a big body and he can slide his feet. Maybe he's always thought of himself as a bucket getter, and after this series, he'll think of himself as, no, I'm a stopper that can shoot. I think if he buys into that he's a 3-and-D guy, he could have a really long, really good career.
I hope so.
Just to jump in right quick, just a heads up, it is 83-83 between Toronto and Miami.
Oh, wow.
Overtime.
Another overtime game. Is this the third overtime game for these guys, or have they only had the one?
They like playing, getting extra bang for their buck. I think present company, everybody here feels the Cavs are going to the finals. Am I the only one who feels that it's going to be a repeat of last year's finals and they will be joined by Golden State?
We'll go to you first, Tom.
I know I'm what you're gonna. I know what you're gonna say, Martin.
No. I mean, it's a 3-team race in the Western Conference. So,
I think Golden State could go back to the finals without Stephen Curry. I think that's how good they are.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I would give them the advantage over the Spurs or the Thunder.
Okay,
but it might be kind of like a coin flip kind of thing. I mean, I think they're that good. And certainly if Curry is healthy enough to play, my biggest concern with the Spurs, the Thunder have exposed, and that is by adding Aldridge, and by the fact that Ginobili and Parker have slid a little bit more, and shockingly, Danny Green has been completely ineffective, and Patty Mills has had a down series as well.
Yeah.
they've gone to a more isolation style. And even though Aldridge is really getting fed, a lot of those role players on the Spurs feed off of the C curls and all the extra passes, and they're just having trouble getting into those sets. They're having trouble creating that space to kind of kick off that perpetual motion machine. And then you throw in the fact that Aldridge is kind of a black hole, and so anytime he's on the court, it automatically makes it harder to do that. And they're easy to defend. I mean, especially for a good defensive team like the Thunder, and the Warriors are a very good defensive team as well. And so, if, a playoff series, you get into these half court grind out. You know everything about your opponent. Nothing's a surprise anymore. Yeah. And the way the Spurs are running their offense, and like I said, just the fact that Danny Green can't seem to get going, Patty Mills can't really seem to get going. The Thunder have found a way to defend the Spurs. I think the Warriors, if the Spurs advance, I think the Warriors will find that they're able to defend the Spurs. I definitely think you can. There's a really good chance it's going to be Cavs versus Warriors in the finals. I made a bet with a guy at work. This was actually before Curry went down with injury, and I predicted that the Warriors were going to win it all. And I made a lunch bet with him that they would lose 3 games or less in route. And at this point, they were up 1-0 on the Rockets. Yeah. And I just said, I think they're going to go like 16-3 or better. And he's a stats guy, and it's actually kind of cool. I work with a guy that does NBA statistics, even though I don't actually do that for my company. But and he looked at me and he said, "You know how they say there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world?" He goes, "That's a free lunch." So he felt bad for me. So he changed the bet to 4 wins. So or 4 losses. So as long as the Warriors don't lose more than 4 games, I get lunch on me. And of course now they've lost 2. But I'm still feeling pretty good about that. The Warriors they're just another level. They really are. Right. And what the Cavs are doing right now, I think is great. And I think could really make the series interesting. Give them a puncher's chance. But the Warriors do what the Cavs do right now offensively, and they're also a really good defensive team. So, they won 73 games for a reason. They're just, arguably the best team of all time. So I think if Curry comes back, and even if he's, like 80%, I just really don't think, even though the Spurs are having a historically good season, even though the Thunder are peaking at the right time and the Cavs are peaking at the right time, it's really hard for me to see anyone beating the Warriors.
Alex, I know you probably expect me to say the Thunder, but really in the Western Conference, it's been a 3-team race all season. And my wife actually, we're talking about this yesterday. It's in the Western Conference, any team in the NBA, your goal is to make the playoffs. And for that small group, the goal is obviously win the championship. But in the Western Conference, it's like, oh, you want to get to the playoffs and win that first round series. But your reward for winning the first round series is you either have to play San Antonio or Golden State. And then your reward for winning that series is, you like Golden State or Oklahoma City. And it just doesn't ease up. But obviously Oklahoma City, I think a lot of people predicted them to lose in 5. The fact that it's 2-2, and they very easily could be a 3-1 in this series. I mean, it could be. It's crazy how well they played the past couple games. But Golden State is just, I expected Portland to win 1 game, and I was just waiting for Damian Lillard to have 40 or some monster game because it just seemed like that was inevitable. And Game 3 in Portland just seemed like it was a perfect storm for that. But I think the Golden State closes that series out in 5. And I want to name drop on Alex's behalf, Tom, because he went to high school with Maurice Bates. So that is
no way, yeah. Really?
Yeah. And wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alex.
One story I like telling. He was actually we played baseball for a little bit. He was basically killing time before the basketball season started, and he was on the baseball team for a couple weeks, and he was a pitcher, and I was a catcher. So here I am in high school.
Oh
wow! Like 5. I'm not a tall guy. I'm 5'6.5" on a good day right now. So in high school, I'm like 5'4", and he's all of probably like 6'6" 6'7" ish at the time. And
he's about like 6'9", 6'10" right now.
Yeah, I think he's
okay.
6'10". But he also had a little bit of a fro in high school too. He doesn't now, but it was kind of weird seeing his baseball hat on. Anyway, I would go up to the mound to talk to him about something, and he halfway up the mound, I'm standing at the bottom of the mound, and we actually somewhere have a picture of me standing up, looking up to this guy, talking to him about.
Dude, you got to get that picture, man. I got to see that.
I really want to see that picture.
That would be
like terribly bad. I want to see that.
Especially him.
So what kind of guy was he? What kind of pitcher was he? I was a pitcher and a catcher in high school. I'm really interested.
He was by far the hardest thrower we had. Yeah. Just the leverage that he was able to bring down.
Could he throw like 90 in high school? Or was he like 80s?
He was mid to high 80s.
Okay. Yeah, that's hard. That's hard.
Yeah, especially in high school. And for a untrained pitcher. I mean, he wasn't playing baseball all the time.
Was he like wild enough to freak people out?
Every once in a while, yeah, but he actually had a decent command, and he was
pretty accurate.
It was one all day. It was just fastballs for the majority of it. So,
man, that's wild. That's awesome. You don't really hear about like the baseball basketball thing as much as you hear like basketball, football, or baseball, football.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Michael Jordan was a really good baseball player too, but that's wild.
Not one of the typical combinations of sports.
So, like you said, he was just killing time. So, if he was throwing in 80s, he was probably your ace in high school. So, did he like play out the season or?
Well, yeah, pretty much after he was once he started getting ready for basketball, he cut out altogether. And because he was just all about baseball, obviously, that was his bailiwick. So he was sticking mostly for that. But I honestly don't really know why he decided to play baseball, because that makes you more susceptible to injury if you're doing stuff like that. So.
Throw out your rotator cuff or something that could mess up your shot.
Absolutely, that'll mess you up. Pull something in your forearm. That could happen. Have a line drive come back at you and hit you.
Oh yeah.
It's hard for him to duck down. So
he's a good target. So I know one time I was pitching and I got drilled in the top of the foot with a line drive. So I mean, if he has something happen with his foot, he breaks a bone in his foot. That could really mess him up for a decent amount of time, just trying to heal up from that. So,
what kind of dude was he in high school?
Fairly quiet. I never really, outside of playing baseball with him, I didn't really interact with him all that much. But really quiet. Didn't really. You never really heard much about him outside of playing basketball. And that's really hard to do at my high school because my graduating class was 66. And there were...
Oh my gosh, you guys went to a small school.
Yeah, there were 250 people in the high school. So it was very easy to keep tabs and hear stuff about people outside of school. But he just... he came to school, did his thing, went to class, played basketball, and that was about it. And he ended up, I think he was there for 1 or 2 years before he went to an academy up in North Florida for his senior year, and that was basically in preparation to go to UF. Played there, and then got drafted by the Sixers. So
was he on the championship team?
Yeah. So he and I think we have.
So he was like the third big because it was Horford and Noah and him.
Yeah,
and even actually,
that team was just insanely good. The talent was.
Oh, I remember.
Was
you guys beat my Buckeyes.
Well, they even had another big that didn't get as Patrick Young, who was he was a pretty good forward as well. I mean, that team was stacked.
Yeah. I remember that championship game. That was the year that the state of Florida just kind of owned.
Yeah, 2007.
Ohio. Yeah. National championship in football, national championship in basketball. 2 years later, Florida stole LeBron. I was like, I'm going to go down to Florida and just start, writing dirty things in the sand or something. I was angry. But of course, then the Marlins, beat the Indians in 97.
Yeah.
So as much as Ohio has kind of owned Detroit, Florida's kind of owned Ohio over the years. But we got Urban Meyer back now. So
Alex, I actually got a question for you. Since you live in Tampa, are people in Tampa basketball fans at all? Are they Magic or Heat fans?
Probably Magic, right?
Not much. Yeah. I mean, there are people that follow. I know the radio station for the Friday show I do. We're an affiliate for the Magic, so even over in the Clearwater, Tampa Bay area, I know we talk about it and we cover it, but really there just doesn't seem to be much basketball following, and which is kind of interesting because I think it's the second time in the last 4 years, something like that, we've hosted the women's Final Four. No, not the Final Four, but we've been a site for the women's tournament.
Yeah, right.
So it's now again, obviously, there's a big separation between women's college basketball and NBA teams and the fans that go along with both. But it just seems like there's not much because everybody's focused on Bucks Lightning. And that's even really about it because the Rays have been just so abysmal with just trying to get people to show up.
Yeah,
it's really, really tough. And they're called the Tampa Bay Rays. They're not in Tampa. They're in St. Petersburg, where I live. But they are actually the city council, the St. Pete City Council, earlier this year decided that they would allow the Rays to talk to any markets outside of this area because it's been a huge push from the team to try to find somewhere else to call home, at least for the purposes of having a new stadium built. Tropicana Field just isn't doing it for them, and so now the worry was once St. Pete City Council allowed that, while they said they would be looking in Hillsborough County where Tampa is, it would not preclude them from going to a San Antonio, a Las Vegas, a Charlotte, somewhere else that was potentially looking for a major league team. So that said, the ownership, Stu Sternberg, the president, has been meeting with the Hillsborough County commissioner, and I know he talked to Commissioner Manfred at the beginning of the season, and they were talking about what it would take to get a baseball stadium built and the demographics and getting people there and all the stuff that goes into that, and especially trying to pick out 2 or 3 good sites. And it looks like there's forward progress being made. So sorry, I'm turning this into a baseball talk, but that's really an attempt to try to build up baseball. But the focus on basketball in this area is fairly limited. The majority of the fandom across all sports is really USF Bulls here in Tampa, Florida State, Florida, Miami, and from a pro standpoint, there's not much going on.
Hey, Tom, I always love talking basketball with you. You know your stuff, and it's always the just in-depth talk. I always enjoy it, man. It's just you and I can have some serious conversations. I feel like, man. And,
we can talk for hours.
Yeah, man, and just different observations. If people want to just learn more, man, about or just hear more what you have to say, where can they find you?
On Twitter, I'm just at Tom Pestak. So actually, I think, it shows it right up there in the box. And then our website is cavstheblog, all one word, .com. And it's like we were talking before we started recording, we've made a lot of changes to the website. We've been around a long time. We started in 2008, and me and a couple of my colleagues bought the website from the former owner this year.
Right.
And we changed hosting, and then we changed the layout, and then we changed the commenting system. And then just we added more people. We have about 12 on our staff now, that's pretty huge for a kind of a niche site. Just following the Cavs. We got 12 guys that are very active. We have these crazy email threads going throughout every day. Some of it's the game that's on, whether it's Cavs or not. Some of it's just what's going on at work. Some of it's figuring out who's got content for the rest of the week. So we're excited. We're enthusiastic, and we've done a better job as of late having daily content and scheduled content. So we have a weekly podcast. In fact, those guys are recording our weekly podcast right now. So we'll have that to drop tomorrow. I assume is this going to go on YouTube, or how do you replay this whole thing we're doing?
So what's going to happen is 10 minutes after I hang up, Blab's going to process this video, and they're going to send me a link with audio and a separate video one. And what I've been doing is I upload it to the YouTube channel, and then I'll share that with you. Yeah, so
perfect. So we'll have that.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that weekly thing with Mark Neal.
Yeah. Down
here. And Alex, getting to your point about Tampa not being a hotbed for basketball, what I've noticed is basketball fans tend to be either college basketball fans or pro fans. Yeah. There's not a lot of crossover. I mean, there is some, but generally like diehard fans are into one and not the other. And you would never say that about football. I mean, all Americans are like diehard football fans.
Yeah. General, yeah.
Just you watch on Saturday, you watch on Sunday. Heck, you might even watch on Friday, if you're into your local high school team. And so Dayton is a huge college basketball town. UD is extremely popular. We're not far from Ohio State. We're not far from University of Cincinnati. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, whatever year Harrison Barnes was on North Carolina.
Yeah.
In the Elite Eight, I want to say like 6 or 7 of the teams in the Elite Eight were within like a 200-mile radius of Cincinnati. Because you had like Cincinnati, you had the Ohio Bobcats were in the Elite Eight, I believe. You had in North Carolina might have been the outlier, but you had I think Xavier, Kentucky, Louisville. I mean, there's so much there's so many Kentucky fans in Dayton. There's so much college basketball in this town.
That's true.
And there's just really no interest in the NBA. And I've been doing this radio show with Mark every week. This year, I did it every week. Last year during basketball season. Even I think the year before that, I was on to try to kind of like gin up, okay, the Cavs are kind of who your team should be, and, so since we redid the site, we have access to all different kinds of stats, like where are the IP addresses coming from?
Yeah.
And like, if you look down the list, Dayton is so far down the list. And I'm thinking, man, like I'm on local radio once a week talking about the Cavs, talking about Cavs the blog.
Yeah.
And it's just not, people just aren't latching on. I got, Australia with the Delhi connection.
Yeah.
Thousands of people. I got Israel from the David Black connection. I mean, all over the world. I mean, Hong Kong, it's like, wow, people are really into the Cavs. And then it's like way down the list, it's like Dayton, Ohio. It's like, man, it's just hard. It's hard to break through, college basketball is so big here. And, the Cavs are on TV down here. So presumably, and I work Cavs paraphernalia around the area, and I get lots of like, oh, hey, I'm a big Cavs fan kind of thing. So, I mean, there is interest, but it's just, it's just not on that level. It's just Dayton's really a college sports town in general.
Oh, I'm a big Cavs fan. Oh, yeah? What's your IP address? Let me look.
Yeah, right. Prove it.
Yeah. Not many fans in Beaver Creek. All right, everyone. That's all the time we have today. Thanks again so much to Tom Pestak from Cavs Blog for joining us on the show. Everyone, if you want more, just check out our Facebook page, AM Sports with Alex and Martin. Please like it. You can also check us out on Twitter and follow us at AM Sports Guys. Check out the website, amsportsguys.com. And if you want to watch the replay of this video, just go to YouTube, search for AM Sports with Alex and Martin, and you'll find all the videos. It's a channel I created, and you can subscribe and just get updates whenever a new video is posted. All right, everyone, thanks for watching. Take care.